Good morning, I'm Kevin Price. Delighted to be with you here on this Thanksgiving week, and looking forward to having some great conversations with some excellent people here. Starting off right away with our first guest, Lowman Henry. He's been on the program before, and I'm looking forward to getting him on again to talk about a great project called American Radio Journal. It's done by a group called the Lincoln Institute out of Washington, D.C., and as always, glad to have you on the program. Welcome.
Good to be here, Kevin.
Tell us a little bit about the Lincoln Institute. I'm fairly familiar with it. It really Jay Parker, correct? Was the founder?
No, that's a different organization.
Okay. The founder of the Lincoln Institute was
actually myself and the late Al Pascal.
Okay, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, there are several Lincoln Institutes operating around the country. Ours is the Lincoln Institute of Public Opinion Research.
Oh, okay.
And we
Very
are
good.
predominantly a state-based public policy organization here in Pennsylvania. And American Radio Journal is our only actual national product that we produce. Everything else we do is state-specific.
Got it. Very good. Tell me a little bit about, and I love that. You know, that's where the answers are, isn't it, really? Is getting the federal government out of these issues and letting the states develop some answers.
Well, unfortunately, the federal government seems more and more to be sticking its nose in where it doesn't belong. But really, if you look at how our system is supposed to work, and to some degree it does, states around the country are, as one philosopher once said, laboratories of democracy. States are where you take policies and you innovate and you try them at the state level, and then the best of those policies and the best of those practices then perk up to the national level.
Right. Yeah, and in spite of the fact that the federal government is trying to create a national monolith, eliminating that ability for a competition of ideas state by state, we can see how powerful it is just by looking at the state of Texas, which produced more jobs than all the other states combined since the Great Recession began. And in fact, if Texas had not done what it did, we would have never gotten out of the recession from a statistical basis.
Well, and Texas does prove that there, even with all of the regulations and all of the laws and all of the restrictions that the federal government has placed on states, there is still room for states to be innovative, and for states to have policies that do make a difference.
Great. Tell us about American Radio Journal.
Well, what we do, Kevin, with American Radio Journal, we're a half-hour weekly public affairs radio program, and we like to bill ourselves as the conservative alternative to NPR, National Public Radio. We take a look at predominantly economic and pro-growth business-related issues, and although we do on occasion, when there are significant foreign affairs developments, delve into foreign affairs on the program, and occasionally, not a lot, if there's a major social policy issue, we have one of our commentators in particular who may from time to time dip his toes into social issues, but predominantly we're interested in pro-growth economic policy, and we bring conservative think tanks, conservative and libertarian think tanks, and authors and politicians, governmental leaders, business leaders onto the program to talk about those issues.
Yeah, and I tell you, I got to confess, I'm conservative/libertarian in my worldview as things continue to evolve the way they're going, increasingly small L libertarian. But I got to tell you, I'm also a huge junkie of NPR. I like listening to NPR. I like the depth. I like the seriousness. I like the dimensions that you can't get elsewhere. What I hate, though, is the editorial perspective. It's like, man, I wish we had this on the right. And so I think this is fantastic, and I hope you expand from 30 minutes to an hour. What do you project that future looking like?
We haven't really talked about taking it up to an hour in length, although what we have found from our affiliates, we now have over 200 of them around the country, our affiliates keep asking us, do you have additional programming? There appears to be, within radio, a real market for this, and particularly our business model, which is that we do not charge radio stations for the product. We're a nonprofit educational foundation. We're funded by grants from grant-making foundations. So we give the product to radio stations at no charge to them.
Oh,
and of
wow.
course, any business that gets an asset given to them at no charge, that's a benefit to them. And so
I
they're
love
looking. A lot of stations, as you know, broadcasting, like every other business, has had to, in many ways, retrench because of the recession and cut costs. So the recession, in some ways, it was difficult for us to start the show because we started it 6 years ago, and barely a year into it, the recession hit. And that wasn't good from our point of view in terms of raising money through grants, because foundations had less because of the recession, but it did create a market because stations were looking for low and no-cost programming.
Yeah, no question about it. There's something about free and cheap. Cheap resonates, but free really sticks to you. So that's fantastic. So are you looking, or is it too early to say that? I mean, you're really new, right? I mean, you haven't been around very long. How old is it?
Well, actually 6 years with American Radio Journal.
Okay.
And it's been steady growth in terms of the size of the network. And our whole focus has been to add as many stations as we possibly can. We're now in 45 states. We still have 5 states that we don't have affiliates in. They are all very small states like Rhode Island, Delaware, where there are, unfortunately, relatively few radio stations. The great Lone Star State is our star. We have more affiliates in Texas, as you might imagine, than any other state. Texas, first of all, it's a large state, so there are a lot of radio stations, but also conservative. And interestingly, we have a lot of affiliates in California. We've even penetrated San Francisco with conservative programming. So on some stations, we are the alternative to what otherwise is very left-wing progressive programming.
Right. What kind of formats do you typically find yourself on?
Every format imaginable. We initially targeted, as you might suspect, news talk stations, and of course we are on a lot of those. But we find that any type of station, even a station that programs predominantly music, they are looking for public affairs programming, which, under terms of their licensing agreement with the Federal Communications Commission, they have to run a certain amount of public affairs programming. So we find that stations that might not otherwise carry news or public affairs do pick up our show. We're on several ethnic minority stations. So what we're able to do with this program is to place it in spots on a programming schedule or on stations that normally wouldn't have this type of educational and conservative programming.
Well, and I love this because I think of it in terms of like your supporters, people that underwrite your organization, to think, for example, here locally in Houston that you're going into the Asian community. I mean, I think that's fantastic.
Well, this is what we want to do. I mean, we obviously want to be on news talk stations, and overwhelmingly news talk stations are conservative and carry the big talkers, the Rush Limbaughs and the Sean Hannitys of the world. So it's good that our program is on those stations because obviously that's an audience we want to reach. But it also was great, like when we picked up a progressive station in Washington State. And
really? You mean like an independent public radio station?
I don't know whether they're affiliated with NPR, but all their programming was left-wing / progressive programming, and they decided they needed a, quote, balance, so they put us on. Now, of course, we're a half hour out of the whole week, but they put us on as balance, which actually prompted some interesting reactions from some of their listeners who found that even that small amount of balance was something that they couldn't actually tolerate. And we had some interesting reactions, but that told us at least that people were listening.
Yeah, so you're like an island of free enterprise in a sea of socialism in Washington State.
I hadn't thought of it that way, Kevin, but that's a good way of putting it.
And Washington being one of the most socialist-minded, progressive-minded states out there. Let's just face it, you and I can be honest, socialism and progressive are really, they are synonyms, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, they're two sides of the same coin, and we have seen, and we're witnessing it now in Washington, what this brings us to. And even with developments today, we've seen that the policies of progressives have totally really taken American foreign policy and thrown it into chaos. Today, Secretary of the Defense Chuck Hagel is resigning amid all the problems that we have there. The uproar that the president has created with his unconstitutional executive order relative to immigration that's now, of course, going to take that whole issue and throw it into the courts, where we're going to fight it out in the courts now for the next couple of years. And really, I think the American voters tried to bring us back to some sort of reality here with the recent midterm elections, but that hasn't penetrated the president and the administration. So it's become very clear in the last couple of weeks we're going to go through 2 more years of gridlock in Washington before the country can hopefully start moving forward again.
I got to tell you, Lowman, they're telling me I got to cut you off, which is just heartbreaking for me because I'm enjoying the conversation so much. I love what you're doing. I think it's very innovative. As you talk about adding programming, I'd love to help in that perspective. I think that it's awesome what you've got in the works. How did you market this, by the way, to stations?
Well, we've done it a couple different ways. We did some direct mail, but we really find, like many things, email marketing works. And just keeping yourself in front of programmers, if a program director or a news director or a public affairs director happens to be looking for a show and you're there when they're looking for it, you pick up an affiliate. If they're not looking for a show, maybe you go into the delete box that particular time. But we find you just have to be there constantly in front of programmers. And, there are over 20,000 radio stations in the country. We've picked up 200, so we feel there's a lot of room left to grow out there.
I love it, and I think, and I look forward to hearing about that growth. I hope we can get you on with some regularity. I hope you're available.
Oh, we'll be happy to, and look forward to having you on American Radio Journal here as we head toward the new year. Certainly, there's going to be a lot going on over the next couple of years as we head into the next presidential election cycle.
Lowman, I look forward to that. I always do. I enjoy being on other stations, and I enjoy having good people who do work like yours on mine. So let's plan on that. Lowman Henry, he is with a great organization, LincolnInstitute.org, and I want you to, in particular, check out AmericanRadioJournal.com. What's great is all your programs are archived there as well. But you know what? You can listen to it right here in the Houston area, and I would suggest that you check it out. But regardless of where you are, if you're listening on this at USDailyReview.com, you can find it in your neighborhood as well. Thanks so much, Lowman.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a great holiday.
You too. When we come back, much more for you right here on The Price of Business.